This is Tony Chimmel, and I'd like to introduce the hosts of the Game Marks podcast, George Feis and Johnny Clash.
Welcome to the Game Marks podcast, where each and every week we take a deep dive into the good, the bad, and the awesome of all things video games. My name is George Feis.
And I'm the man they call Johnny Clash, and today we are playing one of the first ever arcade wrestling games, Appoooh from Sega. We also discuss a ton more updates from WWE 2K25 as we get closer to the launch.
Oh man, there's so much to talk about with that. And as always, guys, please make sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you choose to listen to the podcast. And follow along on all forms of social media at Game Marks Pod. And don't forget, you can get early and ad-free episodes as a part of our Patreon, patreon.com/podexchange, alongside show notes, Discord access, live recordings, giveaways, and a whole lot more from us and Going Postal, which is our buddy Dylan Postal.
That's right. Georgie, how you doing this week? Another game. We got a lot of news here to cover.
There is a lot to cover. I want to jump into it immediately because 2K25 is shaping up to be something special in a lot of ways, but we gotta follow up on what we played last episode. I don't think that there's gonna be much follow-up because it's just one of the most highly regarded, highly sought-after games of all time. How are you feeling about Turtles in Time?
Just a classic. You gotta love it. I was making our reels earlier today and just reliving our playthrough once again. It makes me just want to go back and play it again. But I also want to play that weird Xbox arcade one. I wonder if there's a way to get that now. There's got to be an emulator for it, even though it was like an online game.
Was it 360 or I don't remember?
I believe it was 360.
Man.
But it's an Xbox arcade game. A live arcade game.
I think there's a way. There's
All
always a way. People are very crafty
do
with how they emulate things, so I'm sure that someone's got a workaround for it. But man, we got to jump into the news that is 2K25 WWE. This game looks 2K24 didn't look bad.
I'm
2K25
looking right now.
looks unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm looking right now at the roster page. There are a lot of new people in here, and I'm also seeing that there are Bloodline Elite action figure versions, which are pretty cool. I see Jey Uso and I see Roman, but a lot of first time in the lines here on the roster page, so that's pretty cool. And also, as of this week, a lot of outdated because a lot of people got cut. But these graphic updates are insane. We saw Tiffany Stratton, Solo Sikoa, the new what's it called? Rhea Ripley, where she no longer looks like Moira Rose as the Crows Have Eyes 3 from Schitt's Creek. She now is actually Rhea Ripley, so that's cool. I think it's night and day. I'm interested to see what they're going to do with Creative Suite, like, say, the belts going through the coats, like that kind of stuff. The hair, like, because you could already tell the hair looks way better in this game.
They've always, that's always been something that the wrestling engines and even just 2K as a whole with NBA and I think, honestly, I think it's just an issue across multiple gaming engines, across multiple, fantasy and first-person shooters and third-person shooters and sports games. It's just hair is a hard thing to render to make it look realistic and follow.
Then there's Death Stranding,
accurate physics, and yeah, it just seems. I don't know if it's the lighting effects or the textures that they're using for people's faces, but that Solo Sikoa looks like it's
more like him than him.
I was just gonna say, it looks like it's just they ripped video from WrestleMania or a Raw or something. Like it's incredibly realistic.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome to see. I can't wait to have the actual game. Now let's go through these kind of quickly because there's a lot of updates here.
Yeah.
So there's new AI control for like AI settings for creative movesets. So you go in and you could control how the AI reacts to the moves, like the priority of the move, the repetition, the timing. So I think this favors content creators that like to do universe modes, stream them and all that, or just, like typical watch mode. But also just how your computer player will play against you, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, which, at a certain point, playing against a computer can get kind of repetitive. You can kind of, read the patterns of what they typically tend to do. So not necessarily a necessary revamp, but a welcome one all the same.
No, but you also want it balanced. You don't want it like 2K23 where there was that shift in momentum between maybe it was 22 where they just whoop your ass for like 5 minutes and you whoop their ass for 5 minutes and then it just goes back. That was tough. You can create intergender titles. I don't know why I said it that weird. Intergender titles in 2K25 plus there are existing belts still in the game like 24/7, up, down, down, left, right. And they're both supporting both divisions, so that's cool. You can make like Rhea and Damian Priest tag champs if you really want. It's awesome.
That's really cool.
We changed the minigame for ladder matches. It now has multiple stages. So you press a series of buttons before the timer expires. It kind of looks like how they revamped the cage match a few years ago. You have to do B, then you have to do A, and it kind of keeps switching on you, and there's a timer. So that's cool. Raw on Netflix will be in the game. So the new updated Raw graphics are in there now.
I love this new Raw logo.
It's great. And did you know the coolest part? Those triangles above and below Raw are the triangles from the N in the Netflix logo.
What?
So like Netflix has an N.
Yeah.
And there are two triangles missing from that N. Those two triangles that are missing from the N are in the Raw logo in the same red.
Oh.
So you turn that Netflix logo, you rotate it to the right on its side.
That's cool.
You have the two triangles missing.
That's really cool.
Yeah, a little subtle designer nerdy thing here. But I'm curious if like the actual Netflix logo is going to be in there. You don't typically see that, like USA, Spike, that was never in there.
Yeah, well, think about how much branding there has been as of late with WWE. I mean, for the first episode of Raw on Netflix, they had a giant Fortnite logo in the middle of the ring.
That's true. Online GM and GM mode, there are new GMs that you can select from. There's Shawn Michaels, there's Ava, Nick Aldis, Mick Foley,
debut.
CM Punk for some reason. Mr. Fuji's back in the game. It's been a long time since we've seen him. Sherry, Miss Elizabeth, Armando Estrada, which is pretty cool because I think Umaga is in the game. At least 3-minute warning is in the game.
Oh.
So let me see. Let me go to the roster page quick. Yeah, Umaga is in the game, so that's pretty cool. There's now a weight class where Giants will have an additional purple health bar at the beginning of the match. So it's going to take a while to beat them down a little bit. Like Nia Jax will have it. I'm sure Andre and Rikishi, the Big Quiche, will have it. So I like that. This is something that goes with what I was saying a few weeks ago, how the showcase matches are too easy. They're adding a timer to objectives.
I love it.
I love it too, but now I'm thinking back to like some of them that took me so long. I'm going to fail.
Well, it's going to be that trial and error where you have to, keep going and retry stuff. And, in certain situations, it's super frustrating, but it also adds slightly to the replayability factor of the game, which is kind of cool. That's maybe helps draw out the showcase mode. So it's not such a quick, fast run through. So it might work out.
Yeah, it might work out. We'll see. What else we got here? Okay, a new a new submission meter is here. Kind of looks like the UFC one. I guess
when I saw the video of it, I thought that it looked like familiar, but I couldn't
UFC 4
put my finger on what it felt like. But I was like, it looks like something else, but maybe it is that. Maybe it is one of the
not
UFC
the best.
games.
maybe it works better. We'll see, I guess.
Different.
And we mentioned there was the underground match. There's now a free camera control.
This is wild.
For entrances, which is kind of cool. So you could control your entrance. You want to see what it looks like from a different angle? Go for it. All right. We had CM Punk announce that 2K is coming to mobile via Netflix game. Now, it's not saying 2K25 specifically. It could just be a random little beat 'em up called WWE 2K by Netflix game. So I guess we will see.
Very interesting how the 2K or the Netflix games, have you tried it yet? Like sitting on
just what was it? The WrestleQuest. I think that was the only one.
It's a very interesting, like if you're going to actually try to do stuff like from your TV, it's a very interesting experience.
Well, no, I'm talking like the mobile games you just download from the App Store and you just sign into Netflix and it goes to your phone.
No, but certain mobile games, they let you play from your TV.
Yeah, I'm not fucking doing that. I'm not doing that ever.
I don't know if they would even necessarily do that with the 2K games, but it was the first thing that jumped out at me. I was like, I wonder if they're going to let you do that with certain things where you could just like stream this to your television or like a version of this like from your Fire Stick or your smart TV.
The next thing is a warehouse stage for backstage area, which is really cool. You have the WrestleMania 1 ring, you have the Statue of Liberty in the background, Saturday night's main event hanging there, the Triple H throne, but most importantly, you could climb the SmackDown fist and jump off of it.
We are back to jumping off of the fist. We've come a long way. It's been a long time since that was in a game. I'm excited that it is back.
It's like we're getting some SmackDown vibes here.
Oh yeah. I'm very excited. I think I feel like we're a broken record every time it's time for that yearly release, but it does seem to be that they're following that old school mentality of take what's working and don't necessarily have to fix it, and then just improve on what's there and add more stuff. It's not adding stuff for the sake of adding stuff. They're adding more content to the game to make the game a more well-rounded and diverse experience for multitudes of gameplay.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. I can't wait to do this.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's all the updates we have now. I'm sure that what usually happens is we recorded this tomorrow. There's going to be a whole bunch of them, and we're not going to have them. So next week we'll have, or 2 weeks when this episode comes out. Yeah. But
with that, John, are you ready to put on those nostalgia goggles and take the deep dive into Appoooh?
Looking to add the newest wrestling figures to your lineup? There's no better spot to pick up your next figure than the Wrestling Collector Shop.
Started by collectors for collectors around the globe, Wrestling Collector Shop has been serving the fans the latest and greatest in wrestling action figures since 2002. So the next time you're looking for the newest wrestling collectible to add to your collection, make sure to go to WrestlingCollectorShop.com and use code GameMarks to save yourself 10% on your order.
That's 10% off your order with code GameMarks at WrestlingCollectorShop.com.
All right. As always, John, the deep dive. John? I'm just talking to John. As always, guys, the deep dive is brought to you by our friends over at Wrestling Collector Shop. Make sure to use code GameMark. Save yourself 10%. You just heard the ad. Make sure to go and check out WrestlingCollectorShop.com. Now, Appoooh, which is just how I think that we're going to say it, was released June 1984. For the arcade. It is developed by Sonritsu and published by Sega, and it is one of the earliest pro wrestling games and a significant entry in Sega's arcade history. Now, there are a few other wrestling games before or around this time. You've got tag team wrestling, in 1983. You've got The Big Pro Wrestling also in 1983. And you've got this game, Appoooh, in 84. And then you have Exciting Hour or Mania in 1985.
So it fits right on in there with the classics. It's technically, possibly, the third ever wrestling game that was ever created.
Yeah, this
But
is.
there's also what's it called, Micro League Wrestling.
That's true.
Micro League Wrestling was 1987, so that's the first ever WWF game, that came out. So that's pretty cool. A nice little lineage of what we had and what we came to be. And as we talk about the gameplay and all that, honestly, this game might be above the rest. As far as that era goes.
I'll say it was a surprise. I think both of us went through this game and was just like, why is this look so good? Why does it play so well? Why are the animations so smooth? Like, I think the worst thing about it is that the sounds are a bit repetitive. We'll get into a little bit more of a deep dive as we get to those sections, but to summarize the game itself, it's a wrestling game. It's a professional wrestling arcade game. It's a climb the ladder, beat the tower, whatever you want to call that. It is just, you go through the roster, and
it's as arcade as arcade gets.
Yeah, it's 2D sprites that walk on a 3D plane. Like, you could go up and down, you can go in and out of the ring. It doesn't have that 3/4 angle camera. Everything is straight on. It just, I don't know.
Have that dimension camera that we see in a lot of the games, and I think it's one of the early ones that actually gets it right. But then there is that one part where you spill out of the ring, and
That's
think
jarring.
all the laws of dimension physics are just out the window with that one. But it's okay.
It suddenly goes fisheye, super wide angle.
But like we were saying before, the graphics in this, we'll get to the graphic deep dive later, but the move animations, the moves that you can do, I want to chalk this up to it being an arcade game and not like an NES game, a Coleco game, Atari, whatever. It's an arcade. You could do a little bit more with it. You're doing bulldogs. You Stan Hansen. You're walking around with your horns out. It's so cool what you could actually do. And I think seeing the advertisement for this, us talking about it last week, and then us finally deep diving into it, I'm sitting here like, okay, we're going to play this shitty game. I think I even said that to you. I'm like, this is going to be a short one. This game looks like it sucks. And then you start and I'm like, oh shit. This is nice.
So peek behind the curtain. What we've been recently doing is there some games that we'll play separately and then do the joint playthrough for the YouTube channel. But recently, we've just been kind of going in blind. And I think today was one of those games where we're just like, okay, the first playthrough that we're going to experience is going to be the one that we do for the playthrough live for the YouTube recording. And yeah, expectations, man, they were they were not great, but I was pleasantly surprised with just, the overall feel and flow of the game. Is it the greatest wrestling game of all time? No, but
it could be lumped into this era as one of the greatest. That is very underrated, that no one ever mentions.
But with when you compare it to what else is out there, it's definitely an unsung hero of the time, I think.
Yeah, now let's talk about this roster here. There's 8 wrestlers. They're all designed to be real-life wrestlers, but they use slightly, and I say slightly, different names because they're sometimes one letter off. So you have G. Babu, who is Giant Baba, H. Hogan, but Hogan spelled Hogen, A. Inoki, who, let me guess, Antonio Inoki, sorry to use your formal name. I know the guy. Yo, Tony Inoki. Stan Hansen, who is just S. Hansen. Tiger Man, who's Tiger Mask. A. Giants, who is Andre the Giant. Yuma, who is Umanosaki Yuta. A. Bushi, who is Larry Abdullah the Butcher Shreve.
This, oh man, I almost don't know where to start. Like, I want to follow the regular format of the episode that we've been doing for 6 years, but I feel like there's so much to talk about because I was so surprised about everything about this game. There's a cartoonish nature for all of the characters. Everything is so over the top and exaggerated until you start doing moves, and then there's like a certain level of realism that happens, and I don't know, the movement. John commented during the playthrough that the tracking for the ref was surprisingly accurate.
There's a ref.
There is a ref, period.
There are a lot of games in like the 90s that don't have a ref.
There
is a ref in the ring. He tracks the wrestlers. He follows them. He gets down for the pin. It is so nice. Let's take a quick break here. Let's cut to the ad. Let's pay the bills, and then let's come back. Let's talk about in depth more the art and the art style and the graphics here. Now, the first thing you mentioned was the sound. Give us your thoughts on the sounds of this game.
So, our playthrough was loud. But that's not the fault of the game. That's the fault of us doing our playthrough. But a lot of repetitive sounds. But the mixing of it's almost like it's like a time capsule of that, like this era of what sound mixing was. Like there's those short little intro songs that happen. They all kind of sound and feel the same, even though they got their own little flair per game. The moves have their own unique sounds. It's all chiptune, 8-bit sounds from this era of gaming, but it's not bad. It's it's the same as if you were to go and to play any arcade game from this. At a certain point, you're going to start hearing the same sounds over and over and over again. And, at a certain point, you either are affected by it and you're like, wow, this is very annoying, or you just tune it out and it doesn't even register anymore.
Yeah, I kind of tuned it out. Now, they're not awful, but no. I just want you to think of 1984. You're going into that arcade. You're hearing not the cool noises you would hear now going into an arcade. No. You would just hear beep, 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 everywhere. Beep, 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 beep. Oh my
Pac-Man,
goodness.
You're hearing...
Like every time we see it, it's on TV because we're old and we could only watch like Stranger Things where they're in the mall or something. And there's like always the 80s music over it. But no, if you're going into an arcade in the 80s, it might be the most annoying sound in the entire world.
Yeah, it's oh, man, I'm trying to think of the last time. Like, can you remember the last time that you were in like this generation of arcades? Like, obviously there was a point where, trying to think like what that cutoff is. It was like the Area 51 arcade shooter.
Oh God, I don't even know.
Is now, it like
years ago when I used to go to the arcade that I always mention I used to play Royal Rumble at? It was one of those really old like skee ball arcades before that, and then they redid the entire place, and then it became like modernized with like the golf and Royal Rumble and all that. But yeah, before that it was a really shitty like pinball, skee ball, maybe one shooting game. Like it was not good.
I have
Oh, George, Ricky Starks debuted on NXT tonight.
Good for Ricky Starks.
Look at that. Look at us being up with the times.
There's just like this that you really like painted a picture, and I'm trying to think of the last time that I experienced something like that. Just the all the sounds of an arcade all at once. Like I think the closest you get today, aside from a couple of mom and pop arcades that are still out there, it's like a Dave and Buster's is the closest you get now.
Yeah. There are some upstate, like they're themed, the old school. They're not great, but
or like are there places that are Barcades. We've talked about barcades.
Yeah, I feel like those have some of like the classics, but it's mostly like the ones like Pac-Man and stuff. But then they'll be like, "Oh, all right, here, play Call of Duty on our big screen."
Yeah, or they have
play Mario Kart.
I think we talked about this a couple years ago. They have they'll have the ones that have like the Madden arcade, or they'll have the Turtles in Time, or the Ninja Turtles arcade machine.
Yeah, like we talked about last week.
Yeah,
but let's get into what this artwork here looks like, because I found this this what would you call this, a magazine ad or something?
It's a magazine ad or a poster, or
maybe the side of the cabinet.
I would say
really know.
Maybe the side art of the cabinet.
Like, I have the cabinet down below, but it looks like a render because I see some Photoshop issues, and I don't think what it actually looks like. But this is a Japanese graphic. You have a Noki in the background, an illustrated version, with the wrestlers in the middle of the ring, a crowd, and a ring. And it, says Appoooh up top, or Appoooh, whatever you want to call it, Appoooh. And it's just a nice little anime style wrestling poster, pretty much.
So this has it labeled as... Oh yeah, this has it labeled as a advertisement flyer from Japan is the illustration that we're looking at.
Okay. It's nice. I like it. Now underneath, I also have, I think it's a manual. It has what each button does. This, I would imagine... Control
information card.
Yeah, or I would imagine sometimes those are like next to the joysticks.
Yep.
Up there on the ledge.
They have it's under that little piece of acrylic.
Yeah, so it's got also illustrations of the wrestlers, the buttons, and the Sega logo, and it tells you what to do in Japanese. We can't even translate this, I'm sure, because it's so small and pixelated, but it looks pretty cool. I can imagine this is the theme that the actual cabinet follows.
Oh, yeah. It's such a... I mean, you mentioned it last episode. It's a hard game to research because it's Japan exclusive, and it's an arcade title.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
And it's from the 80s. It's just the deck was stacked against research for this one.
So I found one here on Instagram, but I think from the look of it, it's an Arcade 1-Up mod.
Oh. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, there's really not much on this game. And yeah, I would really like to see it, though, because it's cool artwork. I would like to know if it was actually like this full anime style, like everywhere. Because, man, imagine that piece in your house.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's cool. Just it's a lot. There's a lot happening on the cover. There's a lot happening with the illustrations. But you know where there's not a lot happening in the best way possible? In the matches. There's nothing very distracting. There's nothing very overwhelming. You're in the ring.
Get a crowd.
You have a crowd, but they're not distracting or overwhelming in any way. The angle of the ring is good. The colors of the ring in the arena are good. And the ring is a very, very comfortable size. It's
huge.
Gigantic.
It's like the Raw Monster Ring, whatever you want to call it, back for the Bone Crunchers.
It's unreal, but it's fun. There's plenty of room to move around, like we mentioned. As you go throughout the ring, the ref will react to that and move around and respond to your movements as well.
A lot of fine details here.
The biggest complaint about this game is I don't know how to properly say the name.
Well, it comes at you right away from the title screen. It says Appoooh with the big burst behind it, the pro wrestling game, insert coin, the Sega logo, and getting to, what was funny? We played 2K24 right before we started playing this today.
Yep.
And I was looking at the crowd, and they're like, oh, they all kind of have the same shirts. I'm like, this guy's wearing a polo. He's leaning on the barricade. It's very well detailed, the crowd now and the games we're going to get. You go to this one, they all kind of look the same because, they copy and paste. That's the way you do it back then. But they're still like, the movement is different. So it doesn't feel like it's just copy and paste. It's like 1, 2, like they're all over the place. They're reacting, even if they're not like reacting to, say, we'll call it a high spot, like a body slam.
Yeah.
They're still there. They're still reacting. It's cool. And then up top, you have the time, which the time carries over. It's all best of 3, but the time will carry over for 3 minutes for all 3 rounds. So you better get your body slams in quick. It has who you are up top with your little character icon and your opponent. And when you beat an opponent, it puts their little icon on the bottom left of the ring, kind of like I described it as the meme with the Grim Reaper knocking on the door, like sports teams put on. So you see who you beat as you progress into the game. And it was not an easy game.
First
round was.
It was one of those arcade games that was challenging, but didn't feel like it was meant to, eat coins. You know how sometimes you would go into an arcade and be like, all right, well, you go into the settings of the arcade, you crank up the difficulty, and now this thing just inhales coins. Now, this game doesn't feel that way. It feels, I don't know. You're able to get past the first, second, third match, and then it starts to ramp up and get a little bit more challenging. I think the biggest hurdle to get over here is the time limit.
Yeah, that got you a few times. That was kind of annoying.
That's the hardest thing to get over, but it didn't cheapen the experience any less.
No, it was still cool. But did you know? Did you know, unlike many other Sega arcade games from the 80s, Appoooh never received a home console port? Finding the original arcade cabinet today is extremely rare.
Did you know? While early wrestling games experimented with different perspectives, Appoooh featured a side view gameplay style that became a standard for later wrestling arcade games.
Did you know the title Appoooh is unique and doesn't directly translate to anything specific in English? Some speculate it was meant to sound like a wrestling grunt or battle cry, adding to the game's over-the-top theme.
It's a sound you make when you throw a punch.
Yeah. Appoooh. Yeah, I guess. George, you know what's really bugging me? My camera is now mounted up here and it's kind of loose. So every time I touch my keyboard, I'm just
my
shaking.
hands are never on my desk because mine does the same thing.
George, I stream Fortnite. This is not okay. I gotta fix this.
That's why the cameras are really, really small. Godzilla spawning.
Jeez. I just know. I keep looking over and I'm like, jeez. All right. Obviously no ratings and reviews here for this game because we barely scraped enough information to get these notes down. But we do have our ratings and our final thoughts here because right now, it's time to rate the game.
The game!
All right, Johnny Clash. Appoooh. Will you play it forever? Or future endeavor?
I think it was a cool game. Very pretty. Very ahead of its time. But will I ever go back and play it? Probably not. So I'm going to give it the technicality future endeavor, but I'm happy I was able to discover that it's a game. And yeah, it was cool researching it, but sayonara. But George, what about you?
I'm kind of right there with you. I enjoyed the experience. It was a very, very interesting playthrough. I think it's a fun arcade game, but do I see myself going back to play it? No, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad game. It's on the line, man. It's on that fine line of it's not a bad game, so it doesn't deserve the future endeavor, but I'm not going to go back and immediately start picking it up and playing it again.
Yeah, I just don't know about that.
Yeah, I think this might be a double future, but I think we're both kind of on the line about our reasoning why. It's not a double future endeavor because it's a bad game. It's just there's not a ton of meat on the bone to warrant going back and playing.
Yeah. But all right. That's our rating. We want to hear from you now. Let us know what you think if you have ever played, watched, or seen Appoooh. And with that, are you ready to get into the soft lock question of the week?
Let's do it. All right, the soft lock is a segment on the podcast where one of our mega marks from our Patreon gives us a topic to debate, a question to answer. It's a question of the week with a fancy name. This week, the question comes from the Elder Spork, and Spork's question is, which pre-Crash game title would you pick for a modern / updated remake, and how would you do it?
So, just to name a few here, we got Atari 2600, Magnavox Odyssey 2, Atari 8-bit, Television, Atari 5200, ColecoVision. Now, when I first read this, I was like, thinking console. They've already redone some Ataris, there's some plug and plays, but now I realize he said game. Now, I would go, and they kind of did this, but Carnival for ColecoVision. I enjoyed Carnival a lot. It had like these little shooty games, little Carnival games, but on your little black and white TV screen. Now, I know there is a Carnival, I believe, for Nintendo. Let's see. I saw it recently. Yeah, the Wii had Carnival games, but I don't think it's related.
I'm trying to think. There was a game.
Carnival Coleco. Yeah. My dad used to have this set up on his workbench, and we would play these Carnival games, and I remember how distinct the little like pink noises were.
I'm trying to remember the name of this game. I can see it, but I just can't remember. It was an Atari. I want to say it was a 2600 game.
I have to see if my dad still has that ColecoVision. I don't know where the hell I would set that up, but we've been seeing a lot of like Instagram reels and TikToks and stuff of families pulling out like an old school TV on a cart with like a VCR.
Oh yeah,
for their kids. And we're like, that would be really cool to have one day. Like we just
classic
pull out
CRT television.
Like my parents still have all of my VHS tapes in the basement. Every Disney movie, Pokemon, like you name it, it's down there.
River Raid.
Let me look that up.
River Raid for the Atari 2600. It was just this.
Oh, that looks familiar.
You would like cruise down the river, and it was like a shoot 'em up kind of style game. It was like there are so many other games that are like this. There's like these
When's
are
the last time we got a Frogger game?
Oof.
PlayStation?
Yeah, I know that there was one on PlayStation 1.
GameCube had one. Frogger Beyond.
Wow. What about Paperboy?
Paperboy.
Oh, what about Pitfall? They did remake Pitfall recently, I feel like.
I think Paperboy also got a remake.
Pitfall is another
remake.
2600 game, yeah. 1982.
Yeah, there was an N64 Paperboy.
Yes, I do remember that. That one was like crazy. You could do like, it was like almost like a, I don't even know. Like,
why was Paperboy so fun?
Matt Hoffman BMX Paperboy. Like you could do like backflips and tail whips and stuff in it. It was crazy.
Paperboy N64. Oh, that looks rough. Man, some of the N64 graphics were rough.
What about like a classic Pong remake?
I'm down with that.
With like as it progresses. I know that there's other games that are like this. Or what console was this on? It wasn't the Atari. Thinking about like classic Asteroids or Qbert.
Qbert definitely had a remake.
Yeah, I do remember the Qbert remake. But Asteroids, man, that was
That was fun
a
too.
great game.
That was fun too. They have that big one, I think, at Dave and Buster's, like the really tall one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The video game, going back to games from like pre-game market crash, you realize how a lot of those games were just like, and I mean this as a compliment, so simplistically fun. Like they didn't need to have a million bells and whistles to make it. Was just you're a frog you're a frog trying to cross the street. You're a spaceship trying to blow up asteroids. You're in a side scroller where you're trying to avoid snakes and holes in the ground, and like it's just they were pure. There wasn't a ton to them because they literally couldn't put a ton in it.
Yeah. That's a pretty good question. I like
That's
that.
really
My
good
final
question,
answer is Carnival games. I want Carnival games.
Yeah, I'm going with River Raid.
Nice.
But guys, let us know what you what crash game title you would like to have a modern remake of. Anything from the Atari 2600, the Atari 8-bit, Magnavox Odyssey 2 in television, ColecoVision, Atari 5200, yeah, anything from that era. But man, oh man, John, next episode is a big episode. Because I think it's us closing the chapter on something that we've been working on for the last year, but also leading into something. What'd you say?
Starts a new one.
Also opening the next chapter and starting anew, because we are playing WWE 2K24.
Let's go, baby. Game we know and love. All right. Cool.
Guys, as always, if you want to check out any of the video content that we are making, that is all available at youtube.com/GameMarksPodcast. You can check out podexchange.shop for all of the exclusive merchandise for all things Pod Exchange. That is this podcast, as well as Going Postal with our buddy Swoggle. There's prowrestlingtees.com/GameMarksPod for all of our shirts. Patreon.com/podexchange for this show early and ad-free access to show notes and exclusive content from us and Going Postal. At Game Marks Pod on all forms of social media. And as always, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell. Hold on. I want to say something. You know what I noticed a lot recently? People aren't doing that at the end of their videos. They're saying different stuff now. They're not doing the like, comment, subscribe. They're doing share this video. Just like this video. I think there's something has changed in the YouTube algorithm where they're recognizing that.
You know what I say? Fuck them. I'm ringing that bell again.
If you're Johnny Clash, you ring that bell twice.
Ringing the bell, shaking the screen.
And as always, if there's a product or service that you would like to advertise on this podcast, you can reach out to us over at GameMarksPod@gmail.com. John, whenever you're ready, sir, do that thing.
Game over. Marks.
Game Marks Podcast, put them on the radar. Playing rare games, Sega Saturn, no game shard. Johnny and George work hard and they play hard. Future endeavor games and put them in the graveyard. From the deep dive to the clash at the feast. How can I get more? That's question of the week. Follow on Twitch, there's nothing that they won't play. Game Marks Podcast every single Monday.